Oké, dames en heren, u ziet hier, even kijken, moet ik die kant op wijzen? Ja, die kant op wijzen. Daar ziet u Peter Hickman zitten. Peter Hickman is de belangrijkste road racer van dit moment en daarnaast ook zeer goed in British Superbikes. En dan ziet u boven mij Guido Venneman, dat is een van de redacteuren van Racesport. Good evening, Peter Hickman. Very nice you could join us. Welcome in Holland. You speak any Dutch?
No, I can say dankjewel, but that's about it.
There you go. There you go. You're called the fastest man on the planet on two wheels. Maybe we should explain this a bit to our Dutch viewers, because in Holland, apparently road racing isn't as big as it is in the UK. I think everyone knows the Isle of Man, but maybe not everyone knows what you did there. Maybe you can tell it yourself, why people call you the fastest man on the planet.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I race. I do lots of different racing. I race in the British Superbike Championship. I race at the Northwest 200, the Isle of Man TT, Ulster Grand Prix, Macau Grand Prix. I also usually do things like Le Mans 24-hour World Endurance. I've been to Slovakia and done the 8-hour there. I've been to Suzuka and done the 8-hour there as well. So I've raced pretty much all over the world. Even done some classic racing in Phillip Island and Australia, so I get to ride all over the world, which is pretty fantastic. But what you're referring to, I broke the outright lap record at the Isle of Man TT in 2018, which became the fastest ever lap of the Isle of Man TT. I then also broke the lap record at the Ulster Grand Prix last year in 2019 on my Smith's BMW. Which the average lap time there was 136.415 miles an hour average, which is the fastest lap of any circuit in the world currently.
Yeah. So do you agree? I mean, racing this many series, that this nickname is true. I mean, do you feel it like yourself, like that?
Yes and no. I mean, it's how you interpret it, really. I guess it's the fastest.
How do you interpret it?
Well, fastest road racer in the world, so we say. Probably a better way of explaining it.
You won 5 GPs. I almost got fooled by Wikipedia, who said 4. And you won, I think, maybe some colleague did that to fool us. And you won 4 British Superbikes race. Would you say those are your biggest achievements, or is the fastest lap your biggest achievement until now?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. You're right. 4 British Superbike race wins. I think I've had 16 British Superbike podiums. At the TT, I've had 5 wins, and I don't know how many podiums. I think there's quite a few though. I've also won at the Northwest. I've won at the Macau Grand Prix 3 times. I won at
10 podiums.
The Ulster, yeah. There you go. Thank you. The Ulster Grand Prix, I think, is I don't know how many wins at the Ulster Grand Prix. Is a lot now though. I did 7 just last year, so. I think maybe 14, somewhere around there, and again more podiums. But greatest achievement, it's difficult. I think probably the TT, getting my first win was obviously something very special, and then winning that senior race, which is where I also broke the lap record at the TT, is it's pretty unique.
We just saw an onboard video. I think there are not many people who've never seen onboard videos on the Isle of Man. When I was doing my homework today, I saw an onboard video of you with the Oak. Maybe you can tell us what happened there.
A video with what? Sorry.
The Oak. I think it's 1 minute in the TT track, and then something happens.
I went right instead of left.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so the bit of video footage you've just seen is from a demonstration lap, actually. It's not even a proper lap. That was from a demonstration lap in 2017 on the HP4 Race Carbon BMW. That was the brand spanking new bike. That video footage you just showed there is brand new, that bike was. It had never been ridden. That was the first time it had been ridden at all. So I was actually going quite steady there, believe it or not. But the video you're referring to is in the Superstock race in 2018. I rounded Quarter Bridge on the run up to Braddon Bridge. I made a mistake and outbraked myself and had to go straight on, turn around, do a 3-point turn. and come back and then carry on again.
And you managed to win that race, don't forget.
Yeah, and that ended up being my first ever race win at the Isle of Man TT. So I lost probably between 11 and 15 seconds, somewhere around there. I managed to actually claw most of that back, even on that first lap. My standing start was still over 132 miles an hour, even on that lap, having gone straight on. So I think I finished the lap in third place still, even though I dropped back to 9th or 10th in the first sector because of that mistake. And then, managed to win the race.
I can imagine that maybe some people who don't know the road races that well, they might think that the speed you're talking about is top speed, 135.452, which is 317.9 kilometers an hour. That's an average speed. So when you make a small mistake like this in the beginning, are you thinking all the time, I got to make up for it?
No, I mean that the lap record wasn't from the same lap that I made that mistake, but the average speed is 217, somewhere around that, 217 kilometers an hour.
217.988. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the average, for the majority of the lap in miles, 160 plus for the most of the lap. And that's why the average is so high. But it's not, when you make a mistake like that, you just need to block it out of your mind and then just get back on with the race and just do what you can. You can't just make that time up straight away. It's just got to be one of them things. I was lucky enough that on that bike on that particular day, I was extremely fast compared to everybody else on circuit.
Okay, if we switch a bit to the normal situation now. You're much more than someone just racing all the racetracks you can go to, because I think you're, not even a small business owner anymore. You're quite a large business owner now with a staff like 4 or 5 people, I think.
Yeah, not quite that many. There's 2 staff plus myself. But yeah, not only do I race, we're making or building engines for other riders and other races. Also tuning as well as just building. So not just refreshing, but tuning as well, and even building bikes. So if somebody wants, a Superstock bike or a Supersport bike, or even a Superbike building, then here at PHR, as we're calling it, Prince Hickman Racing, we can do that.
You're also importer of Ovale. Maybe Guido knows a bit more about it. I know in the village where Racesport comes from, there are quite a few kids riding Ovales. It's quite a popular class around the world. And you're now importer for the UK. I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah, that's right. I'm the UK importer for Ovale bikes. I first got to know them I go to Colin Edwards boot camp every year in February for the racer camp. And last year, my friend Brandon Cretu, who is the USA importer for Ovales, he brought a couple of bikes.
Isn't he the endurance guy?
Yeah, a bit of endurance. He's also raced at the TT.
Yeah.
Which is how I got to know him. So he brought the bikes down. We do one day on tarmac. Normally at boot camp, at Colin Edwards boot camp, it's all on dirt. It's all dirt track. But on one day we do an on circuit on a go-kart track. So he brought some of his Ovales down, and I got to ride one and absolutely loved it and thought this is exactly what we need in the UK. I got more and more information off him. It turned out there was no UK importer. Somebody had tried to do it and failed. So off the back of that, I went to Italy. I met with all the guys in Ovale, and we came to a deal, and that's it. We're now bringing it into the UK. We have a UK championship, although obviously nothing has started yet because of the obvious. But the UK championship is set to start soon as we're allowed to. As soon as the government says we can go ahead, then the UK Ovale championship will start.
But there's many riders who use that for training, as well as Scott Redding, I see using it, but also GP riders like Maverick Vinales, Jorge Martin. Why is it so helpful to train on that kind of capacity of bike?
Because it's really relevant to what we do. So unlike normal pit bikes, which are Chinese motocross bikes that have been turned into a supermoto, these are race bikes. They're built in Italy. and they have a race geometry. So when you actually sit on them, it feels like a race bike. It's not a motocross bike that's been modified. It's purpose built. So its ergonomics and the way that it rides is very much a race bike. So it's exactly what we want. And you can go and ride them on a weekend. You can go and ride them pretty much anywhere. We can't go and practice on our Superbikes or MotoGP bikes or whatever it is. We can't practice on them all the time. So we need to go ride other bikes. So the closer we can get to something that feels like a race bike, the better. So that's why you're finding a lot of GP riders, World Superbike, and also British Superbike riders now using Ovale bike.
Ovale is also building, I think, a 250 now for Aprilia. Would that be something you would be interested in doing for the UK as well?
Yeah, I think we're probably a little way off that at the minute. We're just starting this year with the Ovale class, and we need to get people into it and into the ethos of what Ovale is all about, and also how much of a good stepping stone it can be for something like the 250 that Ovale are now making with Aprilia. Basically a Moto 3 bike. So it's early days for us, but I think in the future it could be something that could be brought into the UK. And used properly as a stepping stone for young riders and young talent.
As you're now the boss in PHR, are you worried? I mean, it's still in the end of the month. You have to pay the guys working for you.
Yeah, well, it's it's what it is. But at the same time, if I was just racing, then I would have no income whatsoever. So. The whole point of starting PHR properly and starting as a race service, if you like, is to future-proof myself, because unfortunately you can't race forever, no matter how good you are. Rossi's doing a pretty good job, but eventually you have to stop and you have to do something else. So I just wanted to future-proof myself. I'm not too old at the minute, but I have enough experience. And I'm well known enough to be able to actually use my experience and what I've got to be able to put it to some good use, and not only make a business but also help other people out.
Right,
you're 33.
Let's go
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, 33.
Right, let's go quickly through current state of affairs, because until for foreseeable future, no BSB. Northwest has been postponed, but obviously very unlikely that will happen this year. The TT has been cancelled, and obviously also the Ulster Grand Prix has been cancelled. I read somewhere this week that those events are not only, of course, racing success-wise, but also it's really your income mainly. Not purely the racing, but everything that revolves around those events.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the whole it's my job. My job is to race bikes. But again, this is why I'm trying to turn PHR into something other than just my riding myself. If I can, this is why we can have a shop here. The workshop works here really well. We can use it to build other bikes. We can use it to build engines, and we can have, or I can have, a revenue from that, away from racing almost, from my own personal racing anyway. So when things like this happen, I can still have some sort of income.
Right, because obviously at the TT you're selling merchandise, having big deals with sponsors. Those are all gone now. Exactly. Right.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's going to be a tough year.
All right. Maybe we can switch a bit back to when you started racing. You took a bit of the other way around. I think most people start in road racing and go to short circuit, especially if you're from Ireland. But you started the other way around and started doing road race pretty late, if you look at your career. Maybe you could tell a bit how you went on before that in racing, because you have quite a long list of championships you did.
Yeah, the reason I started late is because of my dad, really. My father was not keen on me racing at all. So he pushed me into football, cricket, golf, darts, anything that was low risk and high wages. That's what he pushed me into.
But he was racing himself.
Yeah, he raced himself. He raced at the TT. He won a Manx TT. He raced in Grand Prix. Yeah, he did all sorts back in the 70s. After a big accident, which is really why he didn't want me racing. They had a big accident, long time in hospital, and then became a development engineer and mechanic. So once that kind of started, I obviously was then born later on, and then I grew up around racing. So as much as he didn't want me involved in it, I think it was already in my blood. So by the time I got to 12 years old, he'd actually retired from racing. He was nothing to do with racing whatsoever. He'd moved away to the country, which is to the East Coast where I am now, basically to the seaside to try and get away from it all. I bought my own bike when I was 12 without telling him. I saved my pocket money for a year and bought a bike and hid it around the back of the house. It was a Kawasaki AR50. I hid it for a couple of weeks, then realized I didn't have the skills to be able to actually build it and make it run. So I plucked up the courage to tell my father that I'd bought the bike, and he helped me build it. So from that point onwards, he's been there ever since. And I learned to ride that bike in the field. My next door neighbor had a big field, so I just learned to ride it there. And then from that, I went pocket bike racing or mini moto racing, because we didn't have any kind of pit bike racing or Ovali. That mini GP class wasn't there. So it was just mini motos, and then on to a 125 eventually, which was the Aprilia Super Team Challenge as it was at the time. Moved on to a 400 the year after that, and then moved on to 1,000. Actually, I had a real big jump from a 400 to 1,000. From in 2004. I had to miss the first because I was 16. You have to be 17 to race a 1,000cc bike in the UK. And then moved on from there. I won the championship that year, even though it was my first year on 1,000. I won the Superstock Cup Championship. I did another year in Superstock the year after, and then went into Superbike in 2006. And I kind of pretty much stayed in Superbike most of the time. 2008, I dropped back to Superstock, finished third in the championship, then went back to Superbike and been in Superbike ever since.
And then there's the switch to road racing. Glamour-wise, it's a bit the other way around. I mean, in road racing, you sometimes have to be towed into the paddock instead of out. Why did you choose that to do? And what did your dad think of it?
Well, Dad didn't like it. Not at all.
Understand.
But by this point, I was 27 years old. So obviously, I was an adult. I could do whatever I want. So he might not like it, but it was a decision that I made. I was struggling, to be honest. I was struggling in the British Superbike Championship. I'd had some really good rides. I'd been top 10 a few times. Even in the championship, I'd finished top 10. But I was struggling to get a ride. So unless I had a big checkbook, which I've never had, I couldn't get the onto a bike that was capable of actually being in the front. So I wanted to keep racing. I felt like I'd got enough experience inside me and enough of a level head to be able to do it safely and fast. So I chose to go road racing. So that was 2014. Say I was 27 years old at this point. I had 10 years worth of experience on short circuit on 1,000cc bikes, mainly super bikes. So I felt like I had enough experience and enough knowledge to be able to do it properly and safely.
And could you perhaps tell us something about the way you learned the Isle of Man TT track? Because obviously it's 60 kilometers long, 37 quarter miles. I heard the story that it's something to do with a hire car, and maybe at the end we can come back to a hire car story, Ivan.
Yeah, of course we will come back to. You probably follow Rob Mac Memories. In the end, we will ask you for your best hire car story.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, it's the TT were really keen on getting me over. I was a name maybe, but to come to the TT, so they were really happy for me to go over there. They helped out a lot. So as a newcomer, they helped me with a hire car. They helped me with flights to get there and back. So between January and April, the end of April in 2014, for my first year, I did 7 different trips to the Isle of Man, normally 2 days at a time. Would go have a hire car for the 2 days and just do as many laps as possible. So I'd normally do 5 laps on the first day, 5 laps on the second day. 5 laps doesn't sound too much, but as you say, 60 kilometers, it takes up about 1 hour to do it. So you're looking at 5 hours.
Always in a car, never on a bike.
No, I actually did do 3 laps on a bike, but to be honest, you didn't really learn anything. With open roads, it was just too. It's too busy. It's too. You can't use the road properly because of the cars coming the other way. It's not just cars. There's trucks. There's tractors. There's everything. So I mainly just did car laps, apart from 3 laps that I did on a bike, and watched the onboard videos. I played the PlayStation game. Did as much as possible, basically.
Right, because you say that the different type of speeds you cannot do, obviously, when the roads are open. We got a question from a viewer who's asking if we can ask you something about the brake markers you're using at the TT course, because he remembers you saying something about a guy with a pink hat. And obviously, for the people watching, they can ask questions, Dutch or English, and we can get them to Peter.
Yeah, there's lots of different braking points and braking markers at the TT. As you can imagine, 60 kilometers round. It's 250, 60 corners, somewhere around there. There's a lot of different markers that you can use. Normally, we try and use stationary stuff, so things like a white line on the track, or a black line maybe, or a curb, or a tree, or a signpost, maybe a wall from a house. They're the usual kind of markers or references that you would use for braking, gear changes, things like that. I think, I'm not sure if it was the super stock race or maybe even the senior race in 2018. I think I made a comment in the post race conference, and I said I think it was down at the bottom of Bagaro. Somebody had got like a bright pink or a bright orange cap on, same as what I've got on now, but a bright one. And I kind of used him as a reference for whatever reason. On the first lap, I realised it was about bang on. So I just hoped he didn't move.
Don't use never use the turtle. If you speak about 219 corners in almost 61 kilometers, and you speak about markers, could you, from your head, put in all the markers and all the shifting points and all the corners like some races can?
Yeah, I can talk you around the whole thing. Yeah, it'd take a while though.
Yeah, true. No, but I like you could have every gear change point, every braking marker, every tipping point, everything.
Yes, yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
Well, yeah, and a lot of other riders have even said that to me. Is in riders from British Superbike maybe that say, "Oh, I don't know how you can remember all that." And I say, "Well, okay, we do 12 rounds in the British Superbike Championship. We could probably race on 8 or 9 different circuits. And if I chose a corner to any of them riders, if I chose a corner on any of them circuits and said, "Where's your braking marker? What gear are you in? And what are the reference points?" They'll be able to tell me. The only difference at the TT is you're doing it at a very fast speed, and you're doing it one after another. So it's like going around all these different BSB circuits all at once.
And of course, this year, one of your BSB colleagues was going to make the big step to the TT as well, Glenn Irwin, riding with the Honda team. How do you think he would get on, and how he was going through the process of went through in 2014?
I think it'd have been really fast. Is my honest opinion. He would have been in a much stronger position than what I was when I went to the TT for the first time. I didn't have a ride in 2014, so I didn't ride from October of 2013 until the Northwest. I only did one event, just a club event at the Alton Park North Gloucester meeting. It's just a basic club event, just to get some signatures on my license to be able to race. And then went to the Northwest, raced at the Northwest, and then went to the TT. So really, I was quite rusty as a rider. Riding at the TT, even if I'd had a BSB ride that year, I would have been much stronger and much faster. But as it turns out, obviously that didn't happen. So for Glenn going this year, if everything had been right without a coronavirus, then he would have raced 3 British Superbike rounds. He would have done all the testing beforehand. He would have also done the Northwest and then gone to the TT. So he would have been in a very strong position. He would have also been riding a Superbike. I only rode a super stock bike at the time, and bear in mind we're talking 7 years ago now. So a super stock bike from 7 years ago is nothing like a super stock bike from now. The level of the bike has really risen a lot in the last few years. So for me, he would have been in a very strong position. He's an exceptional rider already, so I think he would have gone extremely well, and would probably he would have definitely have beaten my lap record, my newcomer lap record from 2004.
Right. Yeah.
You spoke about getting signatures on your license. Maybe you can explain that, because I spoke to Ian Locker the other day, and I mean the man is there for 100 years, and he still has to get signatures on his license. I've never heard of that system in any other country. Maybe you can explain how that works.
Yeah, so the rules for the mountain course, or the TT course license, is in the last 6 months you have to have raced at 6 different events. And them events then would count towards. You don't actually have to get a signature now, but it just shows the result sheet shows that you've raced. And I think it's at 2 different circuits as well, so you can't just do the same circuit 6 times. Them 6 events have to be either within the 2 years, so either the end of 1 year and the beginning of the next, all within 6 months, or all in the same year that you're about to race.
All right. What sets you a bit apart, apart from the wins and the lap record, is that you're both good in the roads and in British Superbikes, and there's not many riders who can do that. What do you think? Do you have that the other ones missed, who weren't able to do it as good as you do, combining it?
I think the biggest difference at the moment, at least, is most of your British Superbike riders. In fact, I don't think there's anybody at the minute that's doing both. If they wanted to, somebody like Glenn, they would be fast, and a lot faster than what people think. The reason I am so fast on the roads is because of my British Superbike experience. When you take into consideration Michael Dunlop, Dean Harrison, Conor Cummins, Lee Johnston, or any of them kind of top road racers, you put them into a British Superbike event, and I'm sure they won't be too disheartened with me saying they won't even finish in the top 10. And Dean's been riding a lot of British Superbike recently, mainly because he knows that that's what he needs to be able to ride faster. And he's been getting faster and faster. His lap times have been really, really good, but he's still only just on getting in points, which is top 15. So, whereas myself, I've been in British Superbikes for a long time, and I can win. I've won 4 races, so it's not just a fluke. And it's very, very difficult to win. It's so hard. I've been top 6 in the last 3 years now, top 6 in the championship. So, none of them riders would be able to do that regardless of what machinery they're on. And that, for me, is the biggest difference.
Does it also work the other way around, that you get speed from the roads and you take, because when you were doing well in the roads, it also seemed to help you in British Superbikes, or is that just a state of mind that got you a boost mentally?
No, it's nothing to do mentally. It's more to do with I got actually on a bike that was good enough at BSB. Up until that point, I'd always ridden bikes that weren't particularly, apart from 1 year, I'd not ridden a bike that was actually capable of being at the front of British Superbike. My TT success in 2014, becoming the fastest ever newcomer, and all the press that was around that, then allowed me to get a decent bike in BSB that year. And then I was quite fortunate that it rained so much at Cadwell and maybe put a few people off, but I was fast in the dry as well. I finished 6th in race 1 at Cadwell on that Honda. It's the RAF Honda as it was at the time. I finished 6th in the dry, and I came in frustrated. It rained, and they called the race off, or the rest of the race, and they called it a result. And I felt I had the pace to win even in the dry. And then for race 2, it rained, and that was it. It leveled the playing field even more. The Honda wasn't the fastest in the straight line, but it was really good around the corners. So I used my experience and managed to actually win that race later that year. So then all of a sudden, everything snowballed. After that, it was all of a sudden, Pete can actually not just be faster at the racing like he's just done. So after that, everything kind of kept rolling on. So the next year, I stayed with the same team. We changed to a BMW because we felt a stronger bike. It was something that I pushed for a lot in the team. It made the team kind of change from Honda to BMW, which is a big thing for a team to do. It's very expensive. It's very hard. And that year, then we were fast everywhere we went. I had another 2 or 3 podiums in BSB that year with engines. Even Luckily, the BMW was fast straight out of the crate, even at the time, which was 2015. I went to the TT. I finished fifth in the Superstock race. If I hadn't have been running out of fuel, I'd have probably finished on the podium, but that's another story. And did 131.6 mile an hour on a super stock bike. Again, I didn't even take a super bike to the TT that year. It was a super stock bike still. So to do 131.6 in year two was, it was. I became the 8th fastest rider in only 2 years.
The team you talk about is, I'm not sure how things work. Maybe you can explain that. There's a Smith Racing. You are their rider, but it also looks a bit like you're half owner of the team. They work from your workshop. How is that about now?
No, it's not. It's not my team at all. It's they're just using the facility here that I've got, mainly because Darren Jones, who is the crew chief and also team coordinator, he lives only less than half a mile from here. So where the team was originally based in Gloucester, which is where the team owners are, Rebecca and Alan Smith, their business is down in Gloucester. Is maybe three and a bit hours from here. Is pretty much nearly 200 miles. It's quite a long way from here. When things changed in the team, and then Darren became the team coordinator, it didn't make sense for him to be driving that distance all the time. So because I had the unit here already for a lot of my own bikes and bits and pieces, my own projects, it made sense to allow the team to work from here. So that is really the only biggest connection. Apart from that, the team is owned and ran by Smith Racing, not by me.
All right. We can't talk about in Holland when we talk about motorcycles. The shitty thing is they always start first about safety. I mean, it's the other way around. It looks a bit like if you're in the UK. Which brings me to the point of safety and the Isle of Man. I mean, I've looked it up. In the years you've raced, 19 riders got killed. How do you cope with that knowledge? I know it's not something British riders or people or fans like to talk about, but I mean, it's there. How do you cope with that?
Well, to start with, I didn't even know that was the number. So it's something that we, as a rider, you don't ever really think about. The risk is always there, though, but that's also what makes the event so spectacular. The fact that risk is there, that risk element is what makes it exciting. Yes, it's dangerous, but that's also the exciting part about it. I think the event wouldn't be what it is without that danger. And that's why myself, and I think you'll ask any of the riders, that's one of the reasons why we're there. Now, a lot of people don't understand that. They think we're crazy, or they think we don't have any brain cells, or whatever they want to think. But I would say nearly everything in life in general, if it scares you, it's exciting. And the reason it scares you is because of some sort of a risk. You go on a roller coaster. Why do people like roller coasters? Because you're doing 70 to 100 miles an hour, and there is a risk, or there is a feeling of, if it went wrong, that's what makes it exciting. So, I don't care really what anybody says, that is what makes life exciting. So if I stayed at home and was very safe all the time, then I would just be bored out my brain, as would most people.
And do you think there's a future for that? Because, I mean, if you put up your awning of your truck, then you get fined because you're not wearing a harness, putting it up on the roof in the British Superbike paddock.
Yeah.
And, well, a week later you go on a boat to the Isle, and then you ride with a speed of 5. I mean, do you think it will be able to race like that in the future?
I have no idea, to be fair. I mean, I think the only thing you could say is the TT is obviously a very big part of the Isle of Man government economy. And they are their own government. The race is run by themselves. So it's not an organization running the event. It is run by the Isle of Man government. So, they're their own island. They're their own entity. They can make their own rules. They can do whatever they want. So I think, at least for the foreseeable future, and I certainly hope it always continues.
How's your dad handling your racing now? Because I have a kid who is racing, and I said I'll break his kneecaps when he wants to ride on the Isle of Man. But on the other hand, I love the racing there, and I watch the onboards when he's not watching. So, how do you see that as a son?
Well, yeah, difficult. But both my dad and my mum, they come to the Isle of Man. They absolutely love the Isle of Man. So my dad has actually raced there before anyway, so he knows all about it. And won Manx race there as well, so he knows what it takes to win. He's also helped riders while being there. He was a mechanic for Philip McCallan back in the day in '95 on the Honda Castrol Honda bikes. He's been there with many other riders as well, so he understands it. He knows why I want to do it. I think he can see that I do have a level head and can do it safely and fast at the same time. So, of course, the risk is always there, but I use my head as much as possible. I only push when I feel I need to or if I want to. If I feel I'm comfortable enough to be able to win a race, then I'll have a go. If I feel that the bike isn't good enough, or if I haven't got it set up right, or there's something not quite right, then I just stop. It's not a problem. We will just come back next year. And I think he understands that I'm mature enough to do that and not just push beyond the limit regardless of anything.
I saw you had 5 DNFs. Is that got something to do with that, or were they just other reasons?
Yeah, they've all been bike problems through one reason or another. So I think my first DNF, I had a few in 2016. The Kawasaki team I was with was unfortunately had quite a few problems. They've been mainly bike problems, but actually one of them was there was a noise from the engine and the bike didn't feel quite right. And when I came into the pits, I explained it. The team checked it, and as I set off, I still didn't feel quite right. So I actually just stopped at the end of pit lane, pulled the bike over, turned it off, and walked back. And obviously was very, very disappointed, as was the team. But something didn't feel right, so I just stopped.
Is that a possibility all the time? I mean, if you don't feel well, then or at some point don't think the bike is what you want, that you can still stop without having pressure?
Yeah, I think for myself with the Smiths team, that's something that I've always explained right from the start. And to be honest, I didn't need to explain it. Alan and Rebecca and Darren, who runs the team, is it was all we are all feel and think the same. If there's always next year. You don't have to win this year. Obviously, we want to win. But the risk is too big. If something doesn't feel right, then you just need to either slow down, or stop. There's no well, what if? If something's not right, it's not right for whatever reason.
Is it helpful or is it working against you that you're quite technical? I mean, it could go either way. It can be helping you or against you.
Yeah, I think it can do a bit of both. I think having some sort of mechanical knowledge at least can help. For example, it depends on the problem that you've got as well. So, for example, in the lightweight race last year on the little Norton Superlight that I rode, within probably 8 miles, I had a little problem on the first lap, which I knew was an exhaust problem because the bike got very, very loud. It lost a little bit of power. And in my head, I thought it's broken the exhaust or something, but I knew roughly what it was straight away. So I knew that it wasn't dangerous. So I carried on. So for sure, having some sort of a knowledge of what things can be or can't be can definitely be a help.
And when can it be a disadvantage?
I think it can be a disadvantage if you start thinking or overthinking. If you think too much, then yeah, of course it can be a disadvantage if you're thinking, oh, what about this and what about that, and actually most of the time, you don't need to think about that.
And you do that, or can you keep that away because you work on the bikes? Well, not yourself, but you oversee it quite a lot, and I think you're quite handy with it yourself as well.
Yeah, I don't work on the bikes though. To be honest, I can do little bits for sure. If I need to strip a bike, I could do. Whether I'd put it together completely 100% right, I have no idea. But I'm fortunate that I'm in a position where I don't need to think about it. I don't need to do it, and a lot of riders do have to with the teams they're with, or they may be even running by themselves. But I have 110% faith in the guys and girls that I have around me, and in the Smiths team in particular. So I never even think twice about whether the bike is right or wrong. I just know it's right.
Okay. Guido, we have some questions already from our audience
We
through
do.
Evert.
Actually,
We
there's
do.
some interesting ones. Um, uh, let's start about World Superbike. Someone's asked if someone offered you a World Superbike test or MotoGP test, would you be interested? Well, obviously, last year you did a World Superbike race in Donington Park with the BMW team, but would it be of your interest?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I like riding bikes. I don't really care where it is or what bike it is. I just like to race bikes. So if the opportunity was there, then of course I would take it. I would love to ride a MotoGP bike. I'm too tall for a MotoGP, I would think. Most of the MotoGP teams wouldn't even think twice once they saw how tall I was. So,
We had Loris
but
Bass a
yeah,
few weeks ago, and he's quite tall.
yeah, exactly. He's quite tall, but he struggled with the MotoGP because of the way the bikes are.
Yeah.
They're designed around very small riders because of the power to weight. So it's tough. But the World Superbike, I've done two rounds at World Superbike, both at Donington Park. Actually, the first time in 2012 for Suzuki, and then obviously last year with the BMW team, which wasn't a bad event for me in the end, as it turns out. I've never even sat on the bike before, but it was a last minute thing, but it all went good.
Is it some kind of ambition still to ride World Superbike, or you're well in Britain?
Yeah, I'd love to do it. I don't think there's a rider out there that wouldn't like to do the World Superbike, get to travel the world, go to all these proper racetracks, proper Grand Prix tracks around the world. I'd love to do it. Whether I ever get the opportunity or not is a different thing. It comes a lot down to how big your wallet is, which is always an issue. But yeah, who knows? Who knows what happens in the future?
You did more than 300 British Superbikes races, and I think you did 5 World Superbikes. I'm not sure, 4 or 5. Um, do you think somewhere you missed the boat? Maybe. I mean, is it something you regret not being able to having switched to that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Obviously, I'm 33 years old now, so there's still a little bit of time. But yeah, I was never in the position. I never had the backing to be able to do it. And my British Superbike career was very average until recent times because I was never able to get onto a bike that was actually capable of being at the front, mainly because of money. So, the championship is a lot fairer now. Even the small teams can actually get a bike that's capable of running at the front. So, regardless of your budget to a certain degree, as long as you're a good rider, you can actually show your speed. When I started in 2006, it wasn't like that. It depended on whether you were able to buy the correct tires, whether you were even allowed the right tires to be able to be at the front.
Right, there's another question. It's a quite fun one because it's about the last road race we still have in the Netherlands. It's the Varselring in the eastern part of the Netherlands. Someone's asked if you would ever be willing to race there. I believe Davy Todd did it last year or 2 years ago. He won the championship actually. Is it something you would like to do, or when the opportunity comes?
So it's the International Road Racing Championship. I know
Yeah.
they do a few places. Is it Hengelo? Is that where you're talking of?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Yeah, so I haven't been. I've been invited to go before. To be honest, I get asked to go all over the place, and there's definitely races that I would like to do. I'd like to do them all, but it's also with my BSB Championship already, the Northwest, the TT, the Ulster, Macau. My calendar is already full, so it's already difficult to do as much as I already do. So to add more in would be nearly impossible.
Right.
Right. Speaking of which, what are your goals for the future? I mean, you're the fastest man on earth. You're doing quite well in British Superbikes. Road racing is going good. What are your racing goals still left?
Racing goals are to be British Superbike champion. That's something I definitely need to tick off the list sooner rather than later.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, so easy. You just brake later and put the throttle on earlier than everyone else. It's so easy.
That's what they keep telling me. Yeah.
And then to keep winning as many TTs as possible. I mean, it's obviously that's where I'm very, very strong at the minute. But we'll just have to wait and see. I obviously enjoy racing. Yeah, I enjoy racing and I enjoy riding at the TT and on the roads in particular. So, as long as I can keep doing that and keep winning, then that would be awesome.
Right, there's one more question. I think it's quite an interesting one, but before I want you to answer that one, the question is if the Manx is going ahead or the Classic TT is going ahead this year, are you going there to have some laps? But before you answer that one, I would like to know how awesome would this year's TT have been with Harrison back on the Kawasaki, Hillier on the BMW, Cummins on the new Honda, Dunlop on the Ducati, McGuinness on the Kawasaki. I mean, it would have been quite special, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been. It was. Something I was really looking forward to. Obviously, I was staying on the Smith's BMW, same as last year, but the bike is much, much stronger than what it was last year. We were already fast last year. I was the only person to do 134 mile an hour lap last year. And the bike's only stronger. It's not weaker, it's only stronger. And I know the bike a lot more. I understand the bike a lot more. So for me, I was going to be in a stronger position. But I was also really excited to see people like Michael Dunlop riding probably the best bike on the grid, really. If you look at the Superbike Championship, there was only 3 Ducatis and they finished first, second and third. So it doesn't take a scientist to work out which is the strongest bike. Of course, the riders are riding extremely well as well. That's not taken away from them. But, nearly every single practice session, every qualifier and every race, it was Ducati 1, 2, 3, nearly all the time. It's obvious which was the strongest bike. So I was really excited to have that challenge from Michael on a V4 around the Isle of Man. I think Glenn turning up was really, really surprising. I think he was going to surprise a lot of people this year, but he'll just have to wait till next year. And actually, next year he'll be in an even stronger position, especially if he stays with Honda, because he'll have ridden the Honda hopefully at some point this year. And then also then have more experience of that before TT 2021. So, it was going to be a really, really exciting year. And it's just a shame that we all have to wait now until next year.
And about the Manx? Or the Classic?
And the Manx, the Classic TT, if it goes ahead, which I have no idea whether it will or not, then I think it's something that I'm definitely going to look at because I've not done any laps at the TT this year, obviously. So it would be good to go and at least just do some laps, just prepare myself a little bit for 2021. But it's not the be all and end all. I'll only do it if I really feel I want to, and if I have the right bike that I want to ride. And it doesn't clash with any of the BSB, because if everything does actually start this year, then who knows how the calendar is going to change, because the British Superbike Championship takes precedent in the UK over circuits and over calendars, so they can manipulate the calendar to suit whatever they want to make sure that we run a full championship once we do get away. So if that would then clash with the Classic, then I have a decision to make on whether I go to the Classic or not, because most likely I will do the BSB and not the Classic if that is the case.
Guido talked about the Panigale V4 with Dunlop on it. If Paul Bird would have your phone number, which he probably has, and he would make the phone call, what would happen?
I have no idea. I'm pretty happy with where I am, though, so it would have to be a pretty good deal to be able to sway me to move across. But it's tough. You never really know what you would say in that situation until that actually happened. But at the same time, I am really happy with where I am. I'm really happy with the people I have around me. And I genuinely feel that the BMW can be one of the strongest bikes on the grid, if not the strongest. We just need to work out exactly what it needs.
Can the Ducati do it as well? I mean, I know I can't say it out loud, but some people, not me of course, think that maybe the Ducati won't last the whole race. I would never say that. Someone else would. Yeah, probably.
I don't think they're anywhere near as bad as what they used to be. The twin, because of its high compression, because it had such big pistons and big bores, because it was only a 2-cylinder, then yeah, of course it had problems with reliability because of the longevity of the high RPM. However, the V4 is it's the same size pistons as what we've got in the BMW or a Honda or a Kawasaki. It makes the engine's the same. It's just fires in a different way. That's all. So I don't think they'd have the problems like what they maybe had in the past.
Right, our director says we only have a few minutes left. I wanna get your answer to one last question, and then you can hopefully quickly provide us with a fun hire car story. But the question is about the lap record 1:35.452. How much faster do you think you can go? Because obviously there was quite a lot of traffic, and combined with that question, if someone has to break your lap record, not yourself, who do you want it to be?
Yeah, there was a lot of back markers on that lap. I think there was 9 altogether. If you watch it back, I think if it had been a completely clear lap, then we would have seen probably 136 mile an hour lap at the TT. How far over that, I don't know, but it would have been pretty much a 136. If someone's going to take it away from me, who do I want it to be? I have no idea. I've never thought about somebody taking it away from me, so I don't know.
John McGuinness.
John McGuinness would be a cool one. You know what? I'd be quite happy with John taking it. Yeah, that's a good answer. You can answer for me. I like it.
All right, good one. I think we're quite running out of time, and hopefully Evert is just listening. So, rental cars. Are you watching or listening to the? There he is. Are you listening to the Rob Mac memories on Twitter? By the way.
Yes, I have been listening. Yeah.
Are you going to join? Because it's quite nice to make them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been watching quite a bit, and I've been wondering when I should start. And actually, they've just got to 2005 to 2006, which is when my Superbike career started. So I may well
tonight.
I may well start adding into it.
All right, you have the camera set up and everything ready now, so I would suggest just go for it tonight. Evert, how much time have we got left?
We have still 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes. You think you can have a rental car within 3 minutes, Peter?
Sure, I've got many rental car stories.
Okay, your best one.
Best one. There's a few. I took a couple of journalists around the Isle of Man TT in 2000. I'm not entirely sure what year it was, but it was for the launch of the TT. And we were talking about laps and stuff and how I learned it. And what I didn't say earlier is I did some laps at night. And they said, oh, well, why would you go at night? And I said, well, because there's less traffic around. You can also see if there's lights coming the other way, so you can use a bit more of the track. They said, oh, right, well, we'd love to do that. So I said, oh, well, let's go then. Let's go now. It was about 10:30 at night, maybe 11 o'clock. I said, well, let's go now then. So they jumped in the car with me. I'm not going to mention their names, but they pretty much...
Why not?
They pretty much shit themselves for a lap because obviously I know where I'm going, and at night you can't even really see where you're going. But we did the bottom of Bagara at well over 100 miles an hour in a hire car, so it was. I hit the sump on the floor. I actually borrowed the hire car as well. It wasn't even mine, but I hit the sump on the floor. I think we did about 110 mile an hour through the bottom of Bagara, but I could see there was nobody there because there was no lights coming. But they were holding onto the sides, onto the handrails, everything they could hold on to, they were holding on to. But I'm not entirely sure how fast we did the lap, but it was pretty quick for a car. It was pretty quick.
Fantastic.
The evil brother of Milky Quail.
Yeah, we see on the Isle of Man, there's no speed limits apart from inside the villages. Then there's no speed limits anywhere else. Between the villages and there's no speed limit at all, so you can go as fast as you want.
Peter,
all right, great.
Really big thanks for this nice interview. I hope the people who are watching, I'm sure they like it. And I finished this hour in Dutch. Guido, super bedankt ook voor de medewerking. Ivan ook weer super bedankt voor deze geweldige interview. Ik denk dat we een prachtige uur hebben gehad met prachtige verhalen van Pieter Hickman. En mochten jullie genoten hebben, laat gerust een reactie achter op Facebook of op ons YouTube kanaal. Aanstaande donderdag zijn we er weer om 8 uur. Wie we dan als gast hebben is nog een kleine verrassing. Maar dat laten we jullie morgen of donderdag gedurende de dag weten. Bedankt voor het kijken nu en wie weet tot donderdag.
Massive
Super,
thanks, Peter.
thank you Peter. Bye bye. Ciao ciao.
Legend,
Yo,
thanks.
Thank you.
Ciao ciao.
Bye.